Peter Jennings.
Good evening. It's still too early to have any real feel for the election results. The polls have only closed in a couple of places, but it won't be long before we can get beyond speculation for the first time and find out what the voters genuinely think about all those issues we have batted around for many months. Taxes in the Persian Gulf, abortion in the SNLs, political leadership in general. To remind you of the basics, elections today for every seat in the House of Representatives, 35 seats in the Senate, 36 governors, and 6,000 plus other races for state legislatures in 46 of the 50 states. There is an enormous amount to be decided for the short term and the long, and based upon a network pool projection, we can already tell you that in the state of Indiana, Senator Dan Coates, the incumbent, has held his seat against a fairly spirited challenge from a Democrat, Baron Hill. Senator Coates was the one who got Senator Dan Quayle's seat when he became vice president. That is our first projection of the evening. Now, as always, we have the benefit of exit polls to help us understand why people voted the way they did. ABC's Lynn Scher has been analyzing the early returns. They are early returns. Lynn.
Well, Peter, as you say, until the polls close, we can't tell our viewers exactly why people voted the way they did in specific races. But what we can do is give you some kind of indication of what kinds of things are on voters' minds. From our exit polls, which are a network pool this year, we have learned some very interesting things. For instance, let's start with the issues. What issues are most important to voters? Well, across the country, it turns out that economy, of course, is a real big issue. In New Jersey, in the Senate race, and in the Massachusetts governor's race, it is the #1 issue. Another big issue, education, #1 in the Illinois Senate race and in the Texas governor's race. And abortion is indeed an issue in some states, #1 among voters in the North Carolina and Iowa Senate races. Now, we've talked a lot about this year about the anti-incumbency vote. Do people want to throw the bums out? Well, what we have discovered is when we asked people about the factors that affected their vote, they voted for experience, not change. We also have an exclusive ABC News poll this year, and what we learned from it today is that of those, well, I'm sorry, what you saw before was that 55% have voted for the incumbents, only 36% for the challenger. We also asked the question, is the country going in the right direction? And when we asked that question of the voters in our exclusive ABC News poll, 24% said, yes, the country is going in the right direction. They voted strongly Republican, but 71% said the country is going in the wrong direction, and they voted, as you might expect, Democratic. These numbers, of course, are preliminary. Our polling results will be coming in throughout the evening, and we're going to have all the whys and why nots of specific races, and we'll report them to you as we get them. Peter?
Thanks, Lynn. And after all, when did the machinery ever work that well the very first time anyway? As the night goes on, ABC's Cokie Roberts will monitor the House of Representatives. No race is completely decided yet, but Cokie, cast your mind forward for us a bit, and based on what you're seeing in the exit polls, what hints about forthcoming legislation, or at least the mood for legislation?
Well, one thing that we have learned is that elections have consequences. So after the off-term election of 1982, when there was a recession and 2 million more women than men turned out to vote, there was immediately a public works bill, and then there were bills to help women, child support enforcement, pension reform. 1986, same thing, when the Democrats took the Senate back. You saw, again, 9 million more women voting than men. You saw that the Civil Rights Bill was passed over a presidential veto. You saw that Robert Bork did not get the nomination. There was a big black vote that year as well. So now if we see those kinds of trends in this election, we can expect in the coming Congress something to deal with the economy. That's very clear from what these voters are saying, and probably some matters that will help women and minorities.
Okay, Cokie, thanks very much. Look forward to hearing you throughout the evening. The old saying, of course, is this is the only poll that counts, Election Day. But in all the polls, for the last many months, we've heard about this mood of get rid of the bums, throw them out, as Lynn Scher said. ABC's Jeff Greenfield is with us in Washington. Jeff, does that mood translate automatically into a vote?
No, it translates when voters know who to blame. In 1966, they knew to blame Democrats for Vietnam and riots. Republicans gained 47 seats. They knew to blame Republicans for Watergate. Republicans lost 43 seats in 74. They knew to blame Democrats for the Jimmy Carter era in 1980. Republicans gained 33 House seats, 12 in the Senate. Without that focus, when they're blaming the whole system, you're going to see, I think, either a low turnout or not much change.
Jeff Greenfield, thanks very much. Some preliminary thoughts and preliminary figures. In a moment, we'll go on to the other news. the murder of an Israeli extremist, pictures from space of a nursery where stars are born. Doing a pretty good job of stargazing. After it was launched last April, NASA scientists found it had a faulty mirror. Even so, the Hubble is still taking some spectacular pictures, which, with the help of a computer, have given scientists an insight into how stars are born. Here's ABC's Jim Slade.
Seen from your back porch, Orion is one of the most easily recognizable constellations. What excites astronomers most about it is this bright object, the Orion Nebula. Seen through a telescope on Earth, it's a stormy cauldron of gas forming into new stars. The Hubble Telescope recently focused on this part of it, producing the first detailed close-up of the tumultuous events in progress there.
What you're seeing there is a sort of a stellar nursery where many stars are being born as we talk, and many planets, and who knows about what civilizations might be born there someday in the future.
They're particularly interested in this jet of gas apparently streaming from a newborn star.
We show this image, and when the image came up in a darkened room, the reaction of the scientists was just wow. I mean, literally there was a wow in the audience.
Scientists see these events as new, but that's in space terms. These events took place 1,500 years ago. It took that long for the light that made the pictures to reach the Earth. Jim Slade, ABC News, Washington.